You know, every time I wear glasses, I look more and more like a lesbian. Hey guys, so yeah, I'm a bit tired. I just had a full day's work and then I had my classes for circus performance. It went really well. However, I'm tired, but I saw a video by Blair White in regards to the talk about genders. There's some drama going on. And then I stumbled upon good old Riley Dennis's gender video in regards to Blair White and that whole thing. So I'm going to do a quick commentary on Riley Dennis's video about proof that there are more than two genders. So let's dive in.
Well, I already know a bunch of people are going to come to this video just to give it a thumbs down and leave a nasty comment without even watching it.
I'm going to watch it. Way to start your video there, Riley. Very positive.
So if you are one of those people, I would challenge you to actually try listening to what I have to say.
Yeah, but a lot of what comes out of your mouth is stupid.
Basically, non-binary genders are real, but plenty of people out there still believe that they're not.
Plenty of people. You mean the majority of people?
Someone who has a non-binary gender is neither strictly a binary man or a binary woman. They might be somewhere in between, their gender might be more fluid, or they might reject the concept of gender entirely.
But that doesn't mean it's a whole new gender. Okay, you can't just pull new genders out of the air, Riley, or out of your ass, okay? No matter how hard you try, people know better.
Non-binary people fall under the umbrella term trans, which refers to anyone whose gender doesn't match what they were assigned at birth.
Yeah, because in the past it was known as transsexual, and now it's transgender. Gender is all 100% social construct bullshit.
For example, a woman who was assigned male at birth would be a binary trans woman, but a non-binary person can also be assigned female at birth.
You're contradicting yourself, saying non-binary female. Female is part of the binary because it's a man and a woman. What the fuck is that?
Mayonnaise is not a gender.
What he said.
Opposite of this is cis or cisgender, which would be someone who was assigned male at birth and identifies as a man.
I'm cis. I'm a cis white male. Public enemy number one to feminists and SJWs like yourself.
So when I use the term trans, I mean binary transgender people as well as non-binary people. Really, anyone who isn't cis.
Oh, because it's such a huge umbrella term, and because it's such a huge umbrella term, you can get away with pulling shit out of your ass.
And people who try to say that this isn't a legitimate thing are just wrong.
You are not a doctor. You are not a scientist. You are not a biologist, okay? The argument that there are two genders is based on scientific proof. We have things to measure the differences between girls and boys, men and women, and their secondary traits of masculinity versus femininity. We have things that can regulate, can create stats and describe these features. What you were talking about as the non-binary shit is there's no evidence. There's no research for it. You're pulling it out of your ass. Sweet Jesus.
One professor in Toronto recently refused to acknowledge any of his non-binary students by their proper names or pronouns.
And he has that right.
He said that when people deviate from the norm, they shouldn't be welcomed with open arms, but tolerated without too much aggression.
No shit. It's called treating them civilly, okay? Treating them with kindness and respect as is expected of treating another human being, okay? You don't have to accept their delusions, but still treat them nicely.
This is a university professor basically saying, you're lucky that your gender doesn't make me aggressive towards you. Ew.
You're assuming.
And this guy isn't the only one. Most people who make response videos to mine can't seem to resist the temptation to throw in some ad hominem insults towards me, usually saying that my non-binary gender doesn't exist.
I'm sorry, you make it so easy.
Other non-binary people face discrimination and prejudice every day as they try to navigate their lives in a world that assumes you have to be a man or a woman.
Again, you're conflating non-binary with the binary. You can't say that you're a non-binary woman. You can't say that because a woman is part of the fucking binary. God!
The main thing I hear people cite to deny our existence is science.
Nobody is denying your existence. Stop being melodramatic. Fuck. I need more booze for this.
They say that you either have male parts or female parts. As someone who genuinely loves science, it sucks to see people trying to use it to erase the existence of others, especially when there is plenty of science to suggest the opposite.
Someone who loves science? but decides to throw it out the goddamn window because it doesn't make him feel validated, you're pulling new genders from nowhere. There are people who are smarter than you, who are using biology to showcase to you, an idiot, that there are only two genders.
So here are 3 steps to acknowledging the existence of non-binary people. Step number 1, recognize that sex and gender are not the same thing. Sex is not gender. Gender is not sex.
No, they're not. Sex is a biological thing, however, gender is rooted from our biology, okay? Think of it as the secondary traits that describe us as human beings, the differences between man and the differences between women. They're rooted in our biology.
If you can't accept this basic fact, then we're never going to agree on anything.
Oh yeah, and the whole argument that gender is 100% social construct with no roots, no existence out of biology and science. You know, the one that you respect?
Sex is biological and has to do with your anatomy and physiology, though I've done an entire video on why this also isn't a perfect binary, which I'll link to in the description. Gender, on the other hand, is a socially constructed set of cultural norms.
You're talking about gender roles.
These general definitions are not made-up Tumblr fantasies.
They are.
You'll find a similar distinction made by the World Health Organization, the American Psychological Association, the University of Monash, and the Ontario Human Rights Commission, just to name a few organizations.
But just because you name a few, that means you're a leading expert in this fucking transgender bullshit. Is that right, Riley? Is that right?
Even the Merriam-Webster Dictionary and the Oxford English Dictionary say that gender is more about cultural factors than biological ones.
Yeah. Things that describe people who tend to have more masculine traits or things that associate with more masculine things versus the feminine traits, okay? So, yeah, we exist in this world, and as we move through it, we will be influenced by these outside environmental factors, okay? So, like, it's more masculine to not express their emotions, whereas it's more feminine to express more emotions. Both of these are not a bad thing, but you guys think it's a bad thing that keeps you constricted into these little roles and these little boxes, and you just don't like it because it makes you feel small and non-existent.
And while some people want to believe that sex and gender have the exact same meaning, that understanding is inconsistent both with all of the sociological research done today, as well as the origins of the words themselves.
I mean, like, yes and no, okay? Both of them are interchangeable. Yes, okay? Because, like, think of it as sex is the objectifiable truth in regards to the binary, male and female, the body types, the genitalia, the facial hair, testosterone, the X chromosomes, XY chromosomes. It's in our very DNA. This is the objectifiable biological science behind describing what the gender side of it is. Gender is more the subjective attributes to this objectifiable biology, okay? Gender is influenced by our sex. They are interchangeable in that sense. They're not the same thing. However, you can't have one without the other.
Sex came from the Latin sexus, which probably came from seco, which meant to divide.
Which probably? Like, I thought you were a scientist, Riley. Weren't you the expert? You should actually know this for sure.
Gender, on the other hand, came from genus, which meant kind or type. It's even related to the modern English word genre. Sex was historically used to differentiate between male and female animals, but gender was mostly just used for grammatical purposes. Some modern languages like German have masculine, feminine, and neuter genders in their language, while others, like English, don't have grammatical gender at all. Nothing was ever binary about the word gender, and it wasn't always used the same as it is today. It wasn't until the 60s and 70s that scientists began explicitly differentiating between sex and gender for the purposes of research. This was no accident. Sex and gender describe different experiences, and we needed words to talk about those things.
We've always had words to describe things, Riley. Just like how the word delusional. That's what you are right now.
The people who study sex and gender recognize this and chose to make a clear distinction. The point is, sex and gender are different, and we have to accept that to be able to talk about the next part.
I don't know. I am through so much booze right now, and I can't even.
Step number 2, recognize that it's normal for gender and assigned sex not to match. So if we can agree that sex and gender are different, then we should be able to agree that your gender and the sex you were assigned at birth might not match, according to what our societal norms would have you believe. So someone born with a penis could be non-binary.
Somebody born with a penis, and that means their sex is a male, okay? Which means that their gender will be male. It will be masculine, okay? They co-align with each other, okay? Just like,
Or someone born with a vagina could be a man.
no, you can't. Why? Because the vagina is the female genitalia in order for the female of our species, sexual dimorphism. The males have penises to jettison the fucking seed that swim huge fucking canals in the woman's downstairs area, and then it impregnates her eggs. Her genitalia down there is built in order to receive a man's sperm to impregnate her egg, and her womb is made to hold a growing child, and her vagina allows this child to be birthed out. You can't birth a fucking baby out of the teeny tiny hole of a male's penis.
There is an infinite set of sexes and an infinite set of genders, and they can combine in any way. There's nothing innate that would force people to identify with their assigned sex, especially because social and cultural norms for genders vary so widely from culture to culture.
And if you want to identify as something other than your gender, fine, not a problem. I don't want to tell you how you want to identify as. If you want to identify as a fucking deer or other kin or shit like that, I'm not going to stop you. However, I'm not going to deal with your fucking bullshit and trying to regulate other people's freedom of speech and not using your preferred pronouns, okay? Also, we don't need new laws of regulation to criminalize people for not using your pronouns, okay? You are now enforcing your beliefs onto so many other people who are smart enough to know that there are two genders. We cannot have the laws change in order to criminalize people and throw them into jail because you feel uncomfortable. That's entirely on you. Go fuck yourself.
It's estimated that there are about 1.4 million trans people in the US alone.
Citation needed.
So there's no denying that there are some people who identify with a gender that's different from their assigned sex. Of course, some people argue that being trans is just a mental illness.
Well, it has a lot to do with the brain, whether you look at it at a psychological, social level or a biological one, okay? So intersex people do exist, This is a combination of, the synapses not connecting properly in the brain. Therefore, it's in the brain. And a lot of people think, well, if it's in the brain, therefore it's something to do with our mentality. It's something to do with our perspectives and the reality that we walk in. So, it still has something to do with the brain, whether it's the psychological, social identity that one will associate with and how they view themselves, versus the biological thing where the synapses are not exactly connecting up in order for that person, let's say it was born a male, okay, and they see themselves having a female brain, like they see themselves as a girl. That just means that they're not connecting up properly, so it's still biological.
Which allows them to pretend that trans identities are not valid. But this claim isn't based on any factual evidence.
Oh yeah, and the 76 genders off Tumblr is?
One study found that being trans isn't a mental illness because it doesn't inherently cause suffering.
It doesn't cause suffering, and yet we have transsexuals and transgender people committing suicide and having depressed thoughts. How is this not affecting them?
People's mistreatment of trans people that causes suffering. Even organizations that do call it a mental illness have begun to change their definitions.
Yeah, because you're playing the fucking oh so I'm a victim complex and nobody wants to hurt somebody's feelings nowadays. Instead of scientifical proof and peer-reviewed studies, which take a long time to do, it's just going the easier route to not step on anybody's toes. We are leading our society with feelings over facts, and that will get us nowhere but destruction. I'm sorry guys, I'm just tired and I need more booze and I am getting pissed off at this Riley guy.
Remember, being gay used to be considered a mental illness. It wasn't until 1973 that the American Psychiatric Association declassified homosexuality as a mental illness.
And here you go, the problem with SJWs and feminists everywhere. You were conflicting two different things, comparing apples to oranges. Gender is not sexuality. Homosexuality is versus heterosexuality. Who you like to have sex with and who you are attracted to. That is not a fucking gender.
The same thing happened with gender identity disorder in 2012. The APA now calls it gender dysphoria and treats it more like a variation of human experience rather than a mental illness.
And I'm gonna guess that you don't suffer from gender dysphoria. You, sir, are a trans trender, thinking that you're the leading expert in transgender issues and everything underneath that umbrella, but you don't have a degree in it. You don't show the experience. You don't show the work involved. You're just going off by your feelings.
Gender dysphoria is something that a lot of trans people, but not all trans people, experience to various degrees. And it's basically a feeling of distress or discomfort related to the gender you were assigned at birth. The World Health Organization currently classifies transgender identity as a mental illness because the last edition of their definitions came out in 1990.
It's really not that long ago.
The next edition is set to come out in 2018, and so far, all of the committees have approved declassifying transgender identity as a mental illness. Some people will refuse to believe this, but they'll be left in the history textbooks, along with the people who thought being gay was unnatural.
Again, homosexuality, something to do with sexuality. Gender is something to do with gender.
Trans identities have been studied, and much of the scientific community agrees that they are not mental illnesses.
Most. Use your weasel words. Most. Yep. Okay. Where's your evidence?
Step number 3. Recognize that people can identify outside of the binary.
Yeah, they're called otherkin. Okay? They think that they're cats. They think that they're unicorns. They think that they're dragons. We have some people who think that they're lamps. Or the famous one, attack helicopters. This doesn't make it a new gender. Okay? My spirit animal is a fox. And I associate with the fox. Does that make me a fox? Well, in some fields it does.
Alright, this last step is admittedly the hardest for a lot of people. I've even met binary trans people who deny the existence of non-binary people.
Because they are fucking sane. That's why.
But the thing is, if you can recognize that gender is just this arbitrary social construct that's not based in biology, and you can recognize that people don't have to identify with the gender they were assigned at birth, then why can't they identify with a gender that's not strictly man or woman?
Because there is only 2 genders. Anything else is crazy talk.
There's no clear biological basis to our made-up social concepts of masculinity and femininity. There's no hard and fast line between our ideas of men and women.
If gender is a 100% social construct, why are you identifying as a female? Why? You say you're non-binary, Riley, and then you identify as a binary person. Like,
It's really not that hard to imagine that someone could identify with bits of both, or neither. There are tons of non-binary people out there telling you that we exist and explaining how we feel. I've made a video about my personal experience, and I'll link to several articles in the description about other non-binary people. We're not hiding, our stories are out there, and we exist.
you don't just magically disappear because somebody disagrees with you, Riley. Okay? You think that like we're silencing you or stamping you out of existence? No. We on our side are using scientific proof, okay, and psychological proof and social standards to explain to you, who is a leading expert in transgenders and the multiple genders out there. We are showcasing to you with our actual factual proof to tell you you're wrong and you don't like it. Okay? You are not an expert, Riley. Grow up, wake the fuck up, because we are sick of it.
Scientific research on this is limited because non-binary identities have only recently begun gaining visibility.
Yeah, because they don't exist, and you're just pulling it right out of your ass.
But some sociological and psychological studies have been conducted with non-binary participants. One study published in early 2016 in the International Review of Psychiatry found that there are a significant number of people who identify outside of the gender binary. Such non-binary gender identity or expression has been present over time and across different global cultures. Non-binary people might appear to be a relatively recent and under-researched phenomenon, but it is likely that some people who previously would have identified as trans within the gender binary may have identified outside of the binary if that discourse had been available to them.
No.
Lots of other studies, all of which I'll link to down below, have interviewed non-binary people and attempted to learn about their lived experiences as a way to help better define this experience for further research.
And what if they're lying, Riley? Did it maybe cross your brain, your female brain, that perhaps people can sometimes lie or make up stories or play the victim? No. Everything that they say is true, and we must believe them 100%.
That's science. Those are scientific studies.
Science. Those are scientific studies. And I'm a scientist. Proof.
And if you refuse to acknowledge qualitative research, that's your own anti-science bias.
We're giving you the scientific proof and facts, and you call us anti-science?
Neuroscientific research even shows that there's no such thing as a male or female brain, and our brain biology exists on a spectrum.
Who hurt you, Riley? Who hurt you?
And if you want the authority of a large organization, the World Health Organization says that different gender identities don't necessarily fit into binary male or female sex categories. Gender isn't a static, constant thing that would always develop the same without socialization. Our concepts of gender change over time and between cultures, because it's literally something invented by and then performed by humans. And it doesn't hurt you or inconvenience you in any way to respect someone else's self-identification.
And you know what? No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. You're right. However, you are lying to people. You are pulling shit out of your ass and going on Tumblr, acting as if they are the leading experts on fucking gender. You're lying to us. You are putting out there these things, these magical fucking ideas that pop out of your fucking noggin and trying to convince the rest of the world that they're valid. You are not an expert. You are pulling this out of your butt. And we are just getting so sick and tired of having to deal with crazy people like yourself, okay? First, when there's a problem, you need to identify that problem. And that problem is your mental health. It's insane.
Once you've gone through all of these steps, congratulations! You can now recognize the existence of non-binary people.
Again, you're still on this planet Earth. You still exist and you still breathe air, eat food, and take a dump. You do everything a human being does because you are a human being. We are not denying your existence. However, you are denying reality.
You're still not convinced that non-binary genders are real? I genuinely want to know, what would it take for you to change your mind?
What would it take? Like what? Complete and total mind control and thought policing by idiots like yourself? No, you're not going to convince us because we have statistical facts and studies through science and biology that disprove your theory based off just your feelings. Go fuck yourself. God.
This video is a part of a series called Feminism with Riley that I'm doing in collaboration with Everyday Feminism, a website dedicated to helping you stand up to and break down everyday oppression.
I'm so glad when you use my name in any of your videos. Please promote me because I would love to tear down every fucking argument that you have. You are delusional. All right, guys, this is it. I'm done. I am out of booze right here. There are only two genders. Okay? There's no 74, 76, other kin and shit. Just because you might feel like a dragon, that doesn't make it a whole new gender. You are not a non-binary person, Riley, because you identify as a female and you were born a male. It is quite clear. We are sick of it and we know that you're full of shit. And we don't like disingenuous people. So shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. You all have a good day. And remember, people, take care of yourselves. End of rant.